Hey everyone, geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We have 3 new waves of solar energy coming in at this moment in time. The first one arrives tomorrow, April 9th, from these 2 coronal holes here. These are areas on the sun where the plasma temperature is lower, the magnetic field is open. They're called coronal holes. And so there are these dark spots in the outermost part of the sun known as the corona. This is the highest temperature part of the sun, reaching millions of degrees Kelvin. And they have very special properties. Because the magnetic field is in this open configuration, it extends far out into space and connects directly to the other planets. Earth at 1 astronomical unit is very close in line. And so we have this high-speed stream that's going to connect to Earth tomorrow. And NOAA is forecasting that this will give us active conditions geomagnetically up to a G1 storm, that we can't discount the possibility that we could get G2 storming from this. You always put a little bit of a buffer as a possibility because you never can 100% be precise with space weather. It can surprise you. This also could miss us depending on how the solar wind's flowing out, but we do have this coronal hole here pretty close to the equator, that one just slightly below it. So I think it's a pretty sure thing that that high-speed stream is going to impact us starting tomorrow, basically anytime in the next 24 to 36 hours. In fact, we've been in a week now of enhanced geomagnetic volatility, but that's wave 1. I said there's 3 waves. The second wave is that we have some very active sunspots that will soon rotate onto the Earth-facing side of the sun. And the third wave is a coronal hole that's much bigger than these on the far side of the sun. There's a little bit of uncertainty around that. It could have changed during its solar rotation, but there's evidence that it hasn't, or at least not that much. And so that is going to impact us. It should be geoeffective. That huge coronal hole that's soon to rotate into view, that will be geoeffective on April 23rd. And so we're looking at this runway going from tomorrow to April 23rd of enhanced solar activity. So let me show you these other sunspots. We can't even really see them yet, but we can start to see their coronal loops on the sun. And you actually see them right there. But this right here is for April 6th all the way up to the end of today, universal time, which is the 8th. And you'll see that these coronal loops are getting kind of bigger and bigger, and they're showing up in view better, right? So we see them rotating here, and check out the activity on them as well. Quite a bit of activity. If I actually pause this, go all the way to the end, right? Clearly we got some big sunspots there. So they are about to rotate into view. These sunspots actually already launched 2 big coronal mass ejections, one on the 28th and then one on the 5th of April, I believe. And those launched straight to Jupiter. So Jupiter is going to be hit by those. The first one's already hitting Jupiter probably right now at this moment in time, or a day or 2 ago, something like that. The second one, is a little slower. It's going to hit Jupiter in the future. Jupiter is going to take that energy, work with it, spread it out across the solar system via different radio frequency emissions and also Jovian flux. We talked about that in one of the videos. But that's wave 2. We don't know what these sunspots will do on the Earth-facing side. There's actually just a 3rd coronal mass ejection that was launched from them in the past 24 hours. So we've had 3 now from these groups. They've been very active. And so it's looking, well, 2 actually, 2 from these groups. So it's looking like we got some significant activity coming from that. And then the evidence that there is that big coronal hole that we saw back late March, and I can pull that up for you, and that it's still alive and well, is the fact that it is the fact that we have activity from those sunspots, because typically we see sunspots are more active when they're near coronal holes because of the magnetic field dynamics. So the fact that they have been active is speaking to, it's a bit of evidence that there is actually going to be that big coronal hole still. So we can check out this video here. And this one is not, I have a few videos of this. This is one that goes earlier in time, but let me pause it and zoom all the way to the end. That's the coronal hole that we had. It went geoeffective on the 26th, and that gave us a G2 storm. And then we had that global seismic burst, which seems to have cooled off. Doesn't mean that we can't have a big quake coming up, but in terms of magnitude 6 earthquakes, we haven't had any for a few days, which is perhaps a good thing, hard to say. But this is unlikely to just have completely gone away because this is the 7th rotation that we had of this coronal hole. It goes all the way back to October, like early October 2024. So I don't think this has completely disappeared. Now, did it get bigger? Did it get smaller? That's the main question. The fact that we've had so much activity from sunspots that are basically clustered right here near it. You can actually see these sunspots. Maybe this is the right video to show. Here are these sunspots. Maybe new ones opened up, but this is effectively sunspots that are close to it. Maybe it's these guys that have been blasting stuff off. But in general, sunspots that are close to a coronal hole are quite active. And so that is, that's the third wave. That's April 23rd. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you want some support with this in terms of your health and your wellness, then you go to my website, wildfreeorganic.com/store. I have, for example, herbal tea blends to help you rest and relax. They're great for your parasympathetic nervous system, like spirituality, tranquility. And also this solar energy presents opportunity to unleash your creativity and your passion, and maybe even have better workouts and just feel stronger, more energized. And you can enhance that with things like electricity and then also herb coffee. Intelligently designed and formulated by me and made by me. It's all on the website, wildfreeorganic.com. So let's look at what's been happening geomagnetically now for a week. Here we have our 10-day plot, and it will go right like that. There we go. And so we see basically this big pulse of activity. Let me go down to our HP60 index. Well, this is March 30th right there. We see low activity under, goes from 0 to 9, and actually the HP60 index can go above 9 if it's really active. But the KP index, which is what most people measure, 3 hours, that is capped at 9. But if we go back up, this allows us to look at a 1-hour resolution, so it's a high resolution. But we see that we were in basically quiet conditions back here at the end of March. We had just wrapped up a G2 storm, beginning of April, quiet conditions. Well, for a week now, you can see a lot of yellow. Basically, we've been in active conditions for a week now. And especially here around April 5th, going from the 4th to the 6th, we see this increase in activity. We see this increasing again right here as well. So thank you, Anuhazi, for the super thanks. She's asking, what's the perspective on a possible solar flash? Do you believe that's something that we're ramping up to? Well, solar flash, let's use the scientific terminology, which would be super flare. Is that possible? Yeah, super flare is definitely possible. We know that the sun has done them before because we have these records of Miyake events. Now, can you predict a super flare? That, I think, is a much harder thing. And perhaps, you're not going to be 100%. Maybe you can predict it using planetary geometry. There seems to be connection there. But in terms of the near future, a chance of a super flare, that's just, no one can really predict this stuff, in my opinion. So I hope that answers your question quickly on the live stream. So we see now a week of enhanced geomagnetic volatility. So you've already been feeling this. If you have been feeling it, it's already been causing this increase energy volatility on the planet. I'm sure all of you have been seeing just all the craziness that's been happening collectively because of a variety of factors. For example, the enhanced geomagnetic volatility. For example, the planetary resonances, double Mercury, Venus retrograde. I mean, that was obvious from a mile away if you study this stuff. I knew something like that was going to happen a long time ago, like going back to January. And you could forecast that out even further back if you wanted, if you did it. And then there's also, this global seismic burst. And so all these energies interact with people and just make them a little bit more agitated. And so we have that right now. Some of the other energies that we're experiencing right now is just a stronger global electric circuit. Here we have our total electron content for the ionosphere. This is a model, but it takes a variety of different inputs. And we can see our total electron content, the vertical through the ionosphere. So this is like a vertical slice through the ionosphere. They measure that total electron content relative, and they put it on the scale. Dark colors are basically more energy in the ionosphere. Now this is for the past 24 hours. What you normally see are these two rivers. One in the northern hemisphere, one in the southern hemisphere, and right in the equator you have a little bit of a gap, a decrease in the total electron content. But look at how it just becomes a big blob here at the end of the day. This just happened, right? Now we're back to the beginning of the 8th. At times it's forming just a really big blob. And so you really, look at that right there. So you really only see that when there's a lot of energy in the global electric circuit and in the ionosphere. During quiet conditions, these will be first off, the colors will be quite a bit lower and they'll be pretty distinct. They're not just going to like well up and form this huge increased blob of charge in the ionosphere, which is what this is showing. So we already have enhanced energetic conditions. This first high-speed stream impact coming in tomorrow will be working with these energies because that's where geomagnetic volatility primarily comes from. It's the flow of electric current in the ionosphere, the uppermost part of the atmosphere, that then generates these magnetic field swings that we register on the surface. So it's by causing these electrons to slosh back and forth to a greater degree that we get these magnetic field swings, which then ripple out basically globally. The magnetic field pierces through the crust really easily, goes down into the mantle, goes out to space, so on and so forth. This is the electric rivers, though, that create those perturbations. And we see that right now, the rivers are pretty much filled all the way up to the brim, right? They're right at the historic bank, you could say. And so it looks like we have a greater potential for increased geomagnetic volatility because of this for the next, for just basically tomorrow, but also I think likely going all the way through April for a variety of reasons. We have equinoctial effect, the Russell-McFerrin effect. We have a huge amount of charge in the electron belts. I can show that. I talked about this in yesterday's video near the end. This is the highest that we've seen electron flux, I think in like 2-3+ years, going to above, I think it went all the way to like 6. If I turn off the blue one here, let's check it out. 4.34, we can even zoom in there, make this easy. 4.33 to 10 to the 4. So warning threshold is set for 10 to the 3. We're getting close to 10 to the 5. This is measuring electrons in the outer radiation belt, 5.6 Earth radii, which is the electron radiation belt. And so you have these populations of these electrons, and they're kind of spinning around these magnetic fields at speeds near the speed of light. They have a ton of energy to them because Earth is a particle accelerator. But what happens is that depending on how there's certain resonance mechanisms at play, they can all of a sudden leave the radiation belts and go down into the Earth and charge up the ionosphere because these have a lot of energy, 2 mega electron volts or greater. And so when they rain down into the ionosphere, one particle can charge thousands up. So you don't need that many particles to have a big effect. And we see this time and time again with a whole bunch of things, especially in biology. One small little domino can knock over some really big ones. You have a protein, for example, and there's an electron that's free within that protein because proteins are conductive, and that the movement of that electron to a different part of the protein triggers some sort of conformational change, and the protein happens to be an ion gate in your cell, and now you have a whole bunch of calcium ions flooding out, changing the larger cellular voltage gradient. Mechanisms like that exist fractally all across the universe. And so it's very similar with this, that you have this electron flux. There's not that many, but they're very highly charged, and they can get precipitated down into the ionosphere and other parts of the atmosphere due to resonance interactions with things like Schumann resonances and more. And as a result, you can have an enhancement of those ionospheric energies and therefore geomagnetic activity. And so this is the highest value that we've had in I think 2-3+ years for a long time, maybe going all the way back to the 2010s in solar cycle 24. It's hard to look at the very long stream of this data, but anything over 10 to the 4 is quite anomalous. And this is the highest value that we've had. This washout right here, we see that we took a little bit of dip today. It didn't continue charging up. The reason why is because we actually had a slight solar wind impact. So I can bring that up. Thank you, Francis, for the super thanks. Let me show you that really quick. We also had a solar flare today, but I'll get back to that. Let's go to our real-time solar wind. I also want to show you the planetary resonances. And also April 12th. April 12th to the 13th is looking like a very big day. I mentioned this at the beginning of the live stream, but I just recorded with David and Bella of David and Bella Quantum Plant World, an excellent hour-plus long video on the energy forecast for April 12th and 13th. It's actually on their homepage. So it's linked in the video description, but if you want to see what's happening with the full moon coming up, Venus turning direct, the Chiron Cazimi, there's a bunch of crazy stuff actually. This is a video watch. This is their page. Again, it's linked in video description, but they put that video right as their main video on the home screen, so check that out. Now here's our real-time solar wind. Let's look at this. We see a little bit of a disturbance that came in today, and this caused this increase in geomagnetic activity. We actually had G1 level. It's 4 plus on the KP index right there, 4.67 earlier from 12 to 1500 UTC today. And this is from this enhancement of the solar wind right there. We can zoom in on that. And it's nothing super crazy, but we already are having increased volatility, as you can see from this. With the cursor right there showing the total field strength is 11. So it's about double. We see some of these southward component buckets, as I call them, where the field connected to Earth very nicely. Plasma density was actually pretty high in this 15 to 20 range. It can go very low, right? Velocity is about 500, about 500 kilometers per second. So this is nothing to sneeze at, but it's also, it didn't trigger, extended G1 storming, but it kept us in this active geomagnetic volatility for, now it's been a week. So it's kept us there. We can look at our solar wind model here provided by NOAA to see what they show coming up. And actually this model is not really showing, it's not showing this high-speed stream impact tomorrow. So I don't exactly know why, but you see that this coronal mass ejection launched here from the sun, and there's the slightest flank impact from that coming in around the 11th or the 12th, according to them, universal time. So this is just in general is showing one of these waves. Two of them launched to Jupiter. Looks like that one will miss Jupiter according to the model, but we can actually look at all this stuff that's been happening as it relates to the solar wind. Also, we had a comet fly into the sun. I haven't seen anyone post about this, so maybe I'm the first one to notice it. It's possible. It's a pretty tiny one, so let's check it out. Boom. Okay, let me go back. That's the second coronal mass ejection that the sun launched. That is going to slam into Jupiter fairly soon. That is the type of activity coming in from these sunspots soon to rotate into view. That's wave 2. Okay, that coronal mass ejection itself is not wave 2. The sunspots are, I'm calling wave 2. But that's like the type of activity that they've been doing recently. So that's pretty big. And there's that new one that just launched off. Pretty high velocity too, as you saw, right? And the model showed that as well. If I go back to the model, not that one. You see that it's a fairly high velocity launch right there. Look at the velocity down there, fairly high velocity. So go back to our C3 chronograph. There's the comet right there. Let me go back. This is really cool. And generally, just in general, from observation, we see that when there's comets flying into the sun, big or small, we kind of get these enhancements of solar activity. See that guy right there? Very tiny. But that is a little comet flying into the sun. So it didn't survive. Our little friend, which we just found out about, did not make it. But anyone that's been watching the channel since October knows that anytime these comets appear, we get a lot of solar activity. And it doesn't seem to necessarily be 100% based on size. It's almost more like just a resonance mechanism or something like that. Just the fact that it's there. Now this is very tiny, but they consider comets heralds of change. And we have 2,212 people watching the live stream right now. So we have this little comet that just flew into the sun as all this activity was going on. And the third wave is that very large coronal hole that will be showing up soon. So let me pull that up for you. Let me show you this gigantic coronal hole. Now this is what we saw before, okay? And I'm going to pause this video at the end here. This is March 24th. Unlikely that this completely disappeared. Very likely still on the sun, and it's soon to rotate in. And this is probably why those sunspots have been kind of active that are going to rotate in before this does. This has survived 7 rotations. It's very likely to survive the 8th one. Will it be bigger? Will it be smaller? That's the unknown. But this will be geoeffective on April 23rd in this position, because it was geoeffective on the 26th of March. That's when we had the G2 storm from it, the global seismic burst that followed afterwards, the biggest earthquake being that magnitude 7.7. So if this is bigger, if it's bigger, holy cow, that's maybe when we get a megaquake, which is that video I forecasted, right? Like, we haven't had a megaquake since August 12th of 2021. This is magnitude 8 or greater, if we're going to use that definition. We haven't had a magnitude 8 plus earthquake since 2021, the end of 2021. So this, if it has gone bigger, or even it's the same size, it very well could trigger another global seismic burst like we saw, and that just wrapped up because our earthquake activity has slowed down in terms of these high magnitude earthquakes, thankfully. But that is wave 3, and so that's effectively what we have coming up, folks. Just want you to be aware of that now, giving you the heads up. Let's check out the planetary resonances, because we have again what's happening on the 12th of April with this Chiron Cazimi, and then we have the Libra full moon, and then we have Venus going direct. All that, like Mars is square to the moon and the sun, and we have Mars is also perfectly trine to the north node and all the planets around the north node, which would be Mercury, Saturn, Venus, and Neptune. So there's some really interesting stuff. But look here. Here we have our application called Solar System Scope, and this is set for today. Basically, let me actually set for yesterday. Let me zoom forward a little bit, just right there. It doesn't really matter too much, but here we have today. Look at that alignment that we have between the Earth, Venus, and Mercury, and then Saturn and Neptune. The sun is no longer in the alignment, but we still have this alignment. And Mercury just went direct yesterday, the same day that we had, what was it? It was Venus and Saturn went conjunct. Okay, so Venus and Saturn just went conjunct. Mercury went direct. And so now we have this alignment building once again, because it was now, before it was with the sun, but now it's just like more directly here. But check this out. As we go forward, we'll see the moon actually move into that around the 10th of April. So the moon moves into that alignment on the 10th, and then on the 12th is when we have the full moon, right? So that moon's in alignment with the sun, like that. The moon will be in the magnetotail going from about the 9th through the 15th or so. That's the back part of Earth's magnetic field. But I think the moon entering into alignment with Neptune, Saturn, Mercury, and Venus is significant, because outside the sun, the moon is the main gravitational player for us here on Earth. And so it's adding all of a sudden its weight behind that pre-existing lineup. So I think April 10th, there's just, in general, a stronger gravitational vector as a result of that. And then on the 12th, we have the full moon. And right after that full moon, we have Venus going direct, ending her retrograde. And that's when we're going to start to see, thankfully, some of this chaos that's been happening collectively around the world, right? All these global trade things, whatever, that will start to cool off after Venus goes direct. It's going to take some time to like kind of heal these things and move forward, because she's going to have to go through her whole shadow bound territory. And then May actually has some interesting astrology. I can pull up that really quick just to share it with you. But then in June, things start to look a little better, you could say. I mean, all of 2025 to 2026 is a little wild. So are there any like breaks? Not really. But May has some interesting astrological configurations, because we have this like trifecta. We have Mars being the ruler of Venus, because Venus will be in Aries, Mars will be in Leo. So Mars is the ruler of Aries, so he's going to be effectively giving Venus her marching orders. But Venus will be the the ruler of the sun, because she is the ruler of Taurus, and the sun will be in Taurus for May 1st to the 20th. So the sun will be getting its marching orders from Venus. And then the sun will be giving its marching orders to Mars, because the sun is the ruler of Leo, and the Mars will be in Leo. And the weak link, though, because they're all kind of like giving each other orders, like this game of telephone, the weak link is that Venus will be in her fall in Aries. And so Mars is going to give her directions, and then she's going to hear them, but then kind of mess them up a little bit. She's going to kind of mess them up a little bit, and then she's going to relay them to the sun, and then the sun is big and bombastic, and he's going to really make it grandiose and tell Mars, and then Mars is going to be like, wait, that's totally different than what I thought, but he's going to roll with it because the sun's in charge for him, and then, it's just going to be kind of a little bit of a crazy cycle, I think. That goes from May 1st to the 20th. So just FYI, we have a lot of stuff happening, and also I flagged the date of May 17th. For planetary geometry, really critical planetary geometry on the 17th. Let's zoom forward to it, and you'll see why. Right about here. Yeah. So we see that we have quite a lot happening. You just have a lot of perfect angles at play. It's actually a little hard to see them in this application because they're not plotted. But we have, for example, Uranus-Cazimi right there. See Uranus, Sun, Earth. And so that's Uranus-Cazimi. And then you also have, Jupiter and Venus right there. Let me zoom over to Venus to make it a little easier to see. We have a Venus-Sun-Jupiter angle. And there's quite a lot. We have angles with Uranus and the outer planets of Neptune and Saturn. And so May 17th, if we're looking a little further out, it's also looking kind of significant. So wanted to give you the heads up on that. So I think that's basically it for this forecast. I would just like to repeat something that I mentioned at the beginning, the informal part, which I do cut out after the video is over. And that's just if you've been feeling these energies, then there's a variety of things that you can do. Earthing and grounding is really important. Make sure you balance your energy. The Earth has a neutral charge. It has a lot of these free electrons within it. We build up positive charge because of metabolism. And so you want to make sure you decharge your body. And so walking around barefoot on grass, a lawn, going to the park, hugging a tree. Some of this sounds hippy-dippy, but it's, they're smart people. Going out to the beach, going for a swim. Breathing exercises, you can release a lot of charge through breathing exercises. All that is very, very valuable. And then with these 3 waves of solar energy coming in, there's 2 things. First, you want to make sure you're rested and relaxed and like you're not stressing yourself out. So you want your parasympathetic system to be healthy. And then also, if that's the case, you got this good foundation, then you can work with these solar energies. And I have a variety of products on the store for that. So tranquility and spirituality are really great for boosting your parasympathetic system, helping you rest, relax, and sleep. This is better if you want help with your gut and optimizing your microbiome, gut-brain consciousness axis because of the dandelion root and the lemongrass. But if you want a little bit more of an enhancement of your dreams and connecting to these more solar and planetary energies for any spiritual purposes, and spirituality is great for you because it has the purple lotus flower. If you want to work with these energies a little bit more creatively, like painting, or you have a big project, you want to get lasered in and focused in a flow state zone, you want to work out harder, stronger, faster, all the things, then I can recommend herb coffee, and I can also recommend electricity. Both contain caffeine, but not that much, about 50%. This is yerba mate and ginkgo, really good for just boosting your brain activity. This has coffee, roasted dandelion root, chicory root, and also lion's mane, so good for neuroplasticity as well. Both of those excellent for kind of working with these solar energies, channeling them, and building something with that, which is the best way, I think, to work with this increased chaos and volatility at this moment in time. Forget about what's happening in the news or whatever, right? Like focus on what you can do, what you want to do, especially if that helps other people and yourself, and then work towards that. Maybe you want to lose a whole bunch of weight, right? Or you just want to be healthier. That's an excellent, admirable goal. Everyone should be healthy, ideally, because how can you really help others if you haven't helped yourself? So all these things are great for your health too, because it just in general, herbs are loaded with polyphenols and plant chemicals. that are super good for you. Your body's in general deficient in them. So that's all on the website, wildfreeorganic.com. In addition to like the earthing shoes, which I've mentioned many times before, they're there. They help you be grounded more often in your day-to-day. Though again, I'll always say barefoot is best. So yeah, if there's any questions, now's the time to ask them. We'll do a very short question and answer, but that is effectively what's happening. I would just one more time like to direct you to my friends David and Bella and their channel here. Make sure you go watch the video if you want to learn more about April 12th and why that window around April 12th is so active. There's a lot happening. So that's like, honestly, like wave 2A. Like there's really kind of 4 waves, but 3 waves of solar activity. This is like a big wave though coming in, but it's not solar based. Now there may be a solar event that happens to coincide with this from perhaps those sunspot groups, but this is a big, that full moon's a big energy culmination square to Mars. And the next new moon after will also be square with Mars. So that's something to definitely be aware of. And Scott G is asking, what program do I recommend for seeing the angles between the planets? And yeah, so you can go to, there we go. You can go to AstroDience and you can create a heliocentric chart on their website for free. So you have all these different plotting options and you can create heliocentric charts. There's also a website that does it for free that doesn't require you to sign up. I just don't remember the name of it, but I just found it after a quick Google search. So you type in like free heliocentric chart generator. That will let you see the angles. So yeah. And Nancy's asking, why do some people have no effects and other people like me have dizziness, anxiety, ear ringing? Well, there's a couple reasons. Some people just naturally are more energy sensitive. Some people, based on their kind of their makeup, connect to certain energies more than others. Also, if you have a health problem, right? In general, if you have a pre-existing health condition, you're going to be more sensitive to these things because your body's already out of balance. Some people just are kind of very thick-skinned and they don't have the interoceptive abilities to feel these things. It doesn't mean it's not affecting them, but you know, half of it is, do you have conscious awareness of what's happening to you, right? Like you could have a lot of problems, but if you're not even conscious of them, doesn't mean that it's not affecting you, but you're just not picking up on it. You're so distracted with other things, or your consciousness is just a little bit more subdued. So that also explains some people that don't have these effects. But you can have sensitivity and also work with these energies very nicely. But the key is to make sure your health is good. You want your system healthy, balanced, and equilibrium. And so, yeah, it's a sign that there's probably something that's a little dysregulated that you need to work with and figure out. But it could just be energy sensitivity. It's a really energetic time right now. So my heart goes out to everyone who's feeling this really strongly. And ACHHC is asking, volcanoes are acting up too much to list. I just saw the news articles. Well, we can go to volcanodiscovery.com and see how many volcanoes are active. There's people that say there's more volcanoes active than there are, just FYI. So there's what, I think like 30 something volcanoes active at this moment in time. There's people that are saying there's like 50 or 70, but this is a really good website. They don't mess around here. They aggregate data from all over. So this is, I really trust what they have to say. And they have like a volcano monitoring thing. Volcanoes today perhaps? Or maybe just, yeah, okay, right up top. 37 volcanoes are erupting. That's why I didn't see it. It's like a little slider thing there. They do have a lot of pop-ups. And then there looks like there's some unrest with a greater number than that. But 37 volcanoes erupting at this moment in time. Someone's asking, why is it when the Schumann spikes, the frequency gets lower? Yeah, that's a good question. So we can type that in. It's a relationship between power and frequency. Here we have our space observing system, which allows us to see the vertical electric field data of Tomsk, Russia, which Schumann resonances exist within. And what happens is when you get these sort of power bursts, whether that's local from a thunderstorm or global, right? It's pretty hard to read these spectrograms. 99% of people are not reading these correctly. Actually, probably more like, just to be honest, 99.99% of people are not reading these accurately. Yet I had to read a bunch of research papers, like dozens and dozens and dozens on the Schumann resonances. And I also had to look at them daily for like 2 years to start to understand what the heck this was saying, okay? So, but what happens is when power goes up, the frequency goes down because you have greater power across these electromagnetic frequencies. The higher frequency ones will attenuate out faster, which means that they get absorbed into things, whereas the lower frequency ones will hold on to their power better. So just in general, when there's an increase in power, those high frequency ones will get absorbed out at a rate faster than the low frequency ones, and that's why the dominant band, the peak power frequency as they call it, for the Schumann resonances will go down. And we can see that if we examine our data here. It's easier to see it when you overlay them. But remember that this is basically right there at the beginning of the 7th of April. And see this decrease in the frequency? That's because the power went up. So that's the relationship. Casey's saying, someone mentioned the magnetic fields. How is Earth looking and how does it look coming in? Yeah, Earth's magnetic field looks fine. I don't know why there's so many people so worried about Earth's magnetic field, but again, I think it's a research thing. There's a lot of really bad information out there on Earth's magnetic field. And I think people want it to be bad. I think for some reason people want it to be flipping or whatever, like, but it's just so, and it goes back to 2015 where there was a whole bunch of uncertainty from the 90s to the mid 2010s with Earth's magnetic field because of how fast the magnetic pole was moving. And there's been inertia to that story. Whereas now, in 2025, you have a much better idea as to why the North Magnetic Pole moves so quickly and exactly like the past history, too, of Earth's magnetic field. I don't want to get into this video. I'm going to make more videos on this. I already have a playlist on this, by the way, like 5 hours of content. But there's been inertia to that uncertainty that existed for like 20 years. And so everyone thinks that the magnetic field is going to flip, but no one does their own research, basically, and they'd all just repeat the same thing that everyone else does. If 2020 taught us anything, is that people are sheep, and that the herd all moves one direction. Very few people think for themselves, if we're just being honest. So that's one of those things that there's groupthink that's active. Not everyone thinks that way, but there is groupthink. Earth's magnetic field is fine. Like, I have no fears about Earth's magnetic field. I think it's great that it's so strong. It really is. Like, it's great that we have some things that we can actually be, we don't have to be like, not afraid, but like we're good. We're good. We don't have to have that be a problem in our collective consciousness. We're fine. Take it from me, don't take it from me. Watch my video playlist, read all the papers that I link. There's dozens of research articles that I link for you in the video descriptions in those videos. So as within, so without. Yeah. So, and just in general, geomagnetic jerks are also a thing. And what I mean by that is that you have these movements in the magnetic field that are kind of rapid. Like every 4 years or so, you get this, what's called a geomagnetic jerk. And so that also can throw people for a loop because we kind of just discovered those more so like, you know, the early 2000s. And so there was a whole bunch of reasons why people were afraid of a magnetic pole reversal, or first you have to go to an excursion. I don't know why people are jumping straight to reversal. You have an excursion can become a reversal if it sticks. But people were afraid of that, and there's just been momentum with that, and it's become a thing. But there's not much evidence supporting it. There's very little, actually. There's very little evidence supporting it. It's a focal point for daily anxieties. Yeah. So maybe I'll take one more question. If there's one more question, I'll answer it. Let's see what we got, and we'll go back to our main Schumann resonance here. Oh yeah, the solar flare. Okay, yeah, there was a solar flare today. Let's check it out. It wasn't a big one. It was only a 1.5 M class flare, but we did have a solar flare. It's the strongest one that we've had in, I think, more than a week. And so we'll wrap it up with this. Here we have our 131 angstrom view of the sun. This allows us to see solar flares. This goes back to the 6th. We'll see our 1.5 M flare from our favorite sunspot group right here at the very end. The very end. Wait for it. There it is. Gone. I can zoom over to that. I think I should be able to. Maybe not easily, but let's watch it. Oh, I can just kind of. I got a trick. Here we go. Right there. That's our 1.5 flare. So we've had we've had some new solar activity, and it doesn't look that significant. But again, most of the activity is here. We have that coronal hole high-speed stream coming in very likely tomorrow, within 36 hours, almost certainly. That's wave 1. Wave 2 are these sunspots. Wave 3 is the big coronal hole that's following up right behind them. So that is your update for everyone. Again, just to finish the video off, to learn more about what's happening on April 12th, very significant date, go to David and Bella's channel. Watch this video here. The sun is a conductor of our ascension. That is an excellent informational product for you all. Watch it right after this. Send you all lots of love and light. Please take care of yourselves. Again, all these products and more available on wildfreeorganic.com. Super optical clarity quartz crystals. Throw that in your cart too. These things are awesome. Amplifying energy. Work with the solar energy. You know, use it. Don't just be a victim to it. Be a participant in this symphony of energy that's unfolding at this moment in time. That's my recommendation. That's what I do. That's what I know a lot of you are doing. And so there is a resonance here that is building. And the way resonance works is that it just pulls energy in. And it's once you're resonating with something, it's easy to keep that energy going. So resonate with that and you will be amazed at what happens. Sending you lots of love and light. Please take care of yourselves. Again, I'll see you all very soon and have a great one.